the slides.
And sorry, and Emmanuel is also coming, but he usually has internet conflict. So
Okay.
I would say let us start.
Okay. Great. So this is a coaching session from our storytelling workshop. And to start out, we're just going to do our little taking some breaths, sending prayers for all those who were affected by the cathedral burning and for all those suffering in the world. Take a few deep breaths and get ourselves grounded to here and now. And try to let go all the other things that are going on in our work life and personal life. And just focus on being with this beautiful group of people today. So thank you. So, thank you. So today we're going to talk about what we did. Sorry, I had a little moment there. What we did with the storytelling in the past month since the last training, and how you might have used some of what you learned, or how you've used storytelling in any situation. And we're going to collect that information and hear your story. Hear your stories about stories. Hi, Emmanuel. Welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Beautiful to see you. I would say it's very early morning.
And happy Monday, Thursday.
Mm-hmm. So, let's talk about what worked. Who has something to tell us about storytelling and how you used it?
I suppose I can go if the background noise isn't too distracting when I speak. So, as I think I mentioned on the training call, I was about to go to a conference as a partner to one of our cooperation circles in Europe, along with other partners. And,
Matt, it's really hard to hear you. Can you talk a little louder?
Okay, I'll type it in the chat if that's okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Who else would like to go? Sodarat, ooh, who's that? Okay.
I can go, Linda. Sorry.
Abraham? Okay.
Yes, Abraham, you go.
Okay. We make use of storytelling as a very effective tool to teach our students peace building at the very young age, because I have a very big book of lovable stories published by Arigato International. So they have collected wonderful stories for value education. So sometimes I use one story during the assembly in the morning. I tell a story to the students and I make them write it in English or Malayalam, whatever, Hindi, whatever language they make. But all these stories have very, very good moral at the end. So I think these stories will help a lot in inculcating values in the minds of our young children in the school.
Wonderful.
So I find it as a very effective tool.
And Abraham, could you put the name of that book and the author in the chat?
Yeah, it is a collection of stories by Arigato International. That is an organization, Japan-based organization, Japanese-based organization that work among children.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, Father James. Thank you for coming in Holy Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to join for like 1 hour. Okay. Thank you.
So Matt talks about he was at a conference in Germany and there were opportunities for networking, and rather than talking about the technical details about URI, he shared experiences and stories that it made it come more alive for partners who were there. And I think that's a lot of what we talked about in the workshop, is how to make our work become more exciting and more alive by using stories. So that's great. Emmanuel said storytelling is the center of all that he does. And there is a saying that people become the stories they hear and the stories they tell. I love that quote. People become the stories they hear and the stories they tell. Stories help people to learn, heal, empathize, and even change. Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you. Storytelling also reduces the propensity for debates and arguments because they are rooted in real life experiences. Thank you, Emmanuel. That's beautiful. Who else would like to go?
So the other day we had P19 Pilot 4 a meeting with Pakidite CC, and Sodarat and I were there, and we asked them, so Potro asked them to tell a story of their lives, and this was a moment that was important in the time. And we decided that we would be doing assessment through storytelling. So we are working on using these stories to assess the impact of the CC.
Nice. Nice. Great. Okay, Karima.
Yes, Europe team was just in Serbia, and by the way, Leila also led us in the workshop using Learning to Live Together that Abraham was mentioned. And so we were in a workshop with volunteers from the Serbian CC, young people whom they use in their own work for young people, and so preparing them for working with young people. And I used a story about the Your Eye logo. I always liked that story, the Your Eye logo, how it was created, because it was actually a 10-year-old boy who made the design of that logo.
Really?
And we were told that the young people who were young, these volunteers that we were engaging with were like 15, and sometimes they might feel that they cannot contribute. I mentioned that story of the Your Eye logo to make the case that no matter your age, you can do very important contributions, like the Your Eye star, which was done by a boy of 10. And he understood perfectly what it was about, diversity and unity, the beauty of different colors coming together and creating a whole, and all of that.
Thank you. I didn't know that. That's a beautiful story.
Tony, we are talking about the logo, not the local. The logo.
The logo was made by a boy called Walter Gray, an American student, Walter Gray.
And the story, as I heard it, is that really people were conceptualizing and brainstorming on how Your Eye could become a reality. And he was doing folding things. He was sitting there with the adults, so to say. And in the end, somebody asked him, what is that logo? And he was so clear that he understood totally what's going on. And that was his way to show how different people of different backgrounds can come together and create a beautiful whole.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that beautiful story. Anyway, you had your hand up.
Yes, the homework was also for some experience we plan for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I said in the past session of training that I was going to ask a young Mayan woman from SCC in Guatemala to tell us the story about about the first day she told her community that she can help them to improve their quality life by mixing the recyclable materials with mud for building houses, so without spending money.
Okay, she's doing it by mixing what?
Mud, M-U-D, barro, Maria, M-U-D.
Plastic, use plastic with mud, with clay.
With gray.
Okay. Wow.
And I want to we make the appointment, but because of the situation of the communications here in Venezuela, the communication stopped. We ran out that day for internet, so we couldn't complete our telling.
Oh.
And the other was that I wanted to start the new semester with my students at the university here in Venezuela, asking them for their presentation to tell the story, starting with this opening line. What would Venezuela be like when this terrible situation finished and we recover our freedom for building a new and safe country?
When we recover our freedom and
our capacity to build a new country.
Oh, wow.
Because I wanted them to dream with the future and to register these stories. But I will send you because it was supposed to start classes 2 weeks ago, but because of the problem of the water, that we ran out of water and electricity for 14 days, so we could not start begin the semester. I think it should begin on Monday, next Monday. I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
I think it's a God that I'm here in each session that we have, because most of the time we run out of the Wi-Fi and our electricity problem. So I'm happy to be able to be with you, the past session and this one.
I'm so grateful you're able to be here. Thank you.
Linda, did you
let me capture, I'll call on you in just a minute, but let me capture what other people said. Let's see. Kutub said CCs are encouraged to narrate their stories on how they overcome challenges to promote peace building. That's great. Emmanuel had a meeting with religious leaders last month hosted by one of our CCs, DREP. Participants were asked to share stories about anything that meant a lot to them. Interestingly, most participants talked about their lands, food, life, family. Different stories told by different people though, but in the end, they realized they all had so much in common. I think that is so powerful. The way to use stories of bringing people together. Thank you so much. And Monica, you had up your hand, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
this is the 25th anniversary of Rwanda. And what I have been doing a couple of times is going to events, because I've been connected to the Rwandan community here at the UN and in the New York and tri-state area, and listening to their stories. It means so much to them to have people who've cared for them over a long period of time. And I was with the Rwandan ambassador last night. The president of Rwanda was at the General Assembly last week. But listening and having the opportunity for URI to go up and talk to ambassadors is part of my job. And I really, really encourage you to come to San Francisco with a story that I can tell to your ambassador at the UN from any of the countries that you represent. The more I have, because she really wanted to know more about URI in Rwanda. I knew it happened. I knew that Musi presented the golden rule. There are certain stories that because you have shared them on these calls, in emails, on WhatsApp, when we have the opportunity to meet your representatives, it just means so much for me to share your story. It's not what I do with the UN they want to hear about. It's what we are doing around the world. And I would love for us to capture quick stories and update them so that we can stay in touch with your representatives at the UN. And the former representative from Rwanda is now representing 11 countries in Central Africa. So I wanted to talk specifically to Emmanuel and to Muse about the DRC, about Sudan, about some of the countries that she's representing in this intergovernmental observer status place. And because she was the representative in Rwanda and we knew all these people, she's been to my house. So she wants to hear about URI. So I really, really want to share stories, and I'll put the name of the organization, and perhaps, Emmanuel, you might even know it. Economic one for 11 countries that includes Rwanda and Burundi and South Sudan and Congo and I don't even know how many of those countries we even have cooperation circles in. But she really wants to talk to us about URI.
I think it is USIP. USIP.
Okay.
USIP.
Maria, I can't hear. I can hear only you.
I was with my headphones. So we have Musi now.
Oh, good. I hope Musi heard me.
We do have Father James putting up his hand, Linda. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, yes. So everybody heard Monica's request for bringing a story in June that you can tell. And how will you capture that, Monica? You just want to hear it, or do you want to record it, or do you want it written anyway?
Someplace that I can store it easily on my phone, actually. If it could be written, that could keep it so that when someone from a certain country tells a story about the more cooperation circle stories.
Yeah, okay.
That I can have access to, that we could, and it would be good for our website, for the UN. I don't know exactly. Let's figure that out to make it the most effective way, easy to do, but something that I can really share to the UN people I work with.
Great, great. Okay, Father James.
Thank you very much. I want to share that we also exchange a lot of stories in Pakistan, and activities which are done by URI CCs in the country. And one very powerful story is of our 1,500 miles journey from Karachi to Khyber. That was to welcome the new millennium, and as it was initiative of the United Religions Initiative to enter into the new millennium with peace. So it was suggested that let there be 72 hours ceasefire around the world. And in Pakistan, at that time, we had around 28 to 30 CCs. And this was our initiative that we want to give message to the whole country that people of Pakistan, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Sikhs, and Bhais, they're all for peace and united together. We give this message to the country. So we had this 1500 miles journey for peace, and we had peace walks, we had press conferences and poetry concerts and music concerts and women's program, youth programs, and it lasted for 12 days. It was a very powerful gesture and manifestation that the initiative of URI, how it has emerged into our country, and that was very powerful. And very often when we come together for annual programs or assemblies, those days are recalled, that how powerful was our joint venture of 1500 miles journey. So it carried a lot of news stories in our newspapers and even on TV networks. And it was also highlighted on international level, because it was manifestation that we are united with the rest of the URA family around the world. There were many other programs in several countries. So it was our contribution from Pakistan, and it has a lot of remarkable memories to share. And whenever we come together, oh yes, I remember I joined in Karachi, oh I was in Hyderabad, I was in Multan, I was in Lahore. And so that's very powerful manifestation, our longing for peace, harmony, and reconciliation, and that this century be the century, this millennium be the millennium of peace. Very briefly, I want to mention that 3 days ago, member of our URI, who was also URI global trustee, Maulana Abdul Khabir Azad, 3 days ago, not 3 years ago, but 3 days ago, Maulana Azad is enough. Azad met Prime Minister of Pakistan in Islamabad, and he was sharing of the interfaith dialogue activities, and he mentioned URI and the work he is doing through this our international organization. And he also mentioned my name as regional coordinator. And the Prime Minister of Pakistan, he was very affirmative. He was very happy that URI is doing this interfaith harmony and peace work in the country. And he also gave the example, Maulana Azad gave the example that he has organized a couple of international, couple of conferences on interfaith dialogue in his mosque. So as Maulana called me and shared with me this story, he was very excited and very happy. I said, we are organizing a program that he told me that for James, you and me, we will also go and meet the Prime Minister and tell him the work which we are doing in Pakistan.
That's amazing. That's amazing. A 1,500 miles.
Yes.
Wow.
Journey from Karachi is one city, port city, and going all the way to the north of Afghanistan. Yeah. Khyber Pass. Yes, it was amazing. How thousands of people, they joined us. Clergy and these lawyers and teachers and groups of women and so on. It was very
Thank you so much. Emmanuel shared something else in chat. Storytelling is a very powerful tool for values education, especially with young people. Our grandparents taught what they wanted us to learn using stories, especially stories of animals. Wow, that's great. Emmanuel, do you remember a story of an animal that you learned?
Yeah, so many of them actually. I still tell some of them to my children today.
Wow.
Stories about the lion and the hare, about the elephant, the tortoise, so many of them. And they use these stories to teach us values of obedience,
Yeah.
So many examples like that.
So that's wonderful. I certainly learned stories from a young age from my grandparents as well, and I'm sure that's true for many of us. So thank you. Karima shared a document, Learning to Live Together, and showed what, of course, some stories were, Learning to Live Together. Do you want to say a little more about that?
I think Angelina can speak to it because she and Leila have been piloting it, the program in Bulgaria and in the Netherlands. And she is also, Angelina is having her hand up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Definitely. We implement Learning to Live Together program.
Angelina, it's hard to hear you. Can you speak louder?
Ah, yes. Let me see. Can you hear me now better?
Yeah, a little better.
Okay. So we have been piloting this Learning to Live Together tool in Bulgaria and Netherlands last year, and we used a lot of storytelling to teach young children, and they are not young children, they are teenagers from 12 to 16 years, how to be peace builders, how to build bridges of tolerance, understanding, and friendship across cultures and religions. And these stories are very powerful, and even these children are so, these people are still young, very young, and they are children. You cannot imagine how powerful stories they can share with us. They shared with us, and they created their own story in 2 minutes, how they decided to become peace builder.
Wow.
And yes, these were very powerful and very emotional moment for all of us, because we didn't expect from them so much, and big input even for us was amazing. Yes, it was amazing. Also, I wanted to share last week before Sombor, before our URI Europe board and staff meeting in Serbia, we were together with Leila in Budapest, having meeting with new group which currently applied for CC, and they were struggling with their CC name. And we decided to share our stories, how we created our CCs, how we choose our names, and they were inspired by these stories, and they start to share with us their stories. And so this was also very interesting and nice moment with absolutely new group, how they start to think and to create peace building. Yes, I think storytelling is very powerful. Doesn't matter in with which age you are working, and especially with young people, it's so powerful. And also, I'm planning next month we will be in Istanbul on Erasmus Plus project together with Leila, Heidi, and several others CCs from Europe. I'm planning to present, to make our presentation as storytelling. Every teenager, every young people will share his or her personal story about meeting a refugee, because our project is focused on refugees. So I think that will be very nice and powerful. Yeah.
Linda, when you are okay with that, Musi wants to share something about storytelling.
Okay.
Musi?
Yes, Maria?
You can go forward.
Thank you, Maria. Hi, Linda. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Greetings of peace from Ethiopia. I will share briefly, first of all, I'm happy to join you. I will share very briefly the power of storytelling from my own personal experience. I'm glad that Monica already mentioned to you what happened in Rwanda, and I was in Kigali, Rwanda, right after the genocide in 1994. and I saw actually dead bodies. I went there right after the genocide when Ethiopia was sending the peacekeeping mission. So I saw the dead body on the street, in churches and everywhere. And that really what transformed me personally to engage in promoting a culture of peace and non-violence. And this is also what motivates me to focus on the work of the golden rule. Had we have this principle in our mind, in our heart, in our action, we wouldn't see the genocide and the atrocity in Rwanda. So I share about this in my work, especially at the African Union. And also I had the privilege way back the meeting that took place in Hiroshima, Tokyo, and Sendai, this island. And I was just sharing the story I was told, what motivates me to engage in the peace process. So I shared about this little that I know later on someone actually put that in the exercise book or textbook of the Japanese at elementary school, which they are using now in the school system. Because also they suffer from the atomic, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all that. And this one is a different, of course, this one is more genocide, but how, something that can impact us when we share it with others, in a story form, how much it will bring an influence in people's mind and motivate people to embody that culture of peace and also to take practical action. So this is something I would like to share that has an impact. Now, how many kids in Japan in the school curriculum will hear about it? I came to know this later on, but when I was sharing the story in Japan, I was not aware of it. And also, this is what moves the story that I shared on what happened from my personal experience than from a film or reading a book, what went in Rwanda, what motivates us also to dedicate a peace pole, a peace monument at the African Union. People were so moved, especially religion leaders were so moved to say, we dedicate this peace pole or peace monument at the African Union so that all member states of the African countries will not see again another genocide. So this is again the power of storytelling. Thank you. This is what I want to share for the time being.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So Emmanuel has lost his video.
I am sending him how to do it, but
Good. Thank you.
It seems that he dropped.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Who had their hand up? I thought I heard. Oh, Mamoon. Thank you, Mamoon.
Yes. How are you, everybody? Nice to see your faces and listen to your stories. I want to share two events that we used storytelling as a technique for delivering the message. The first was our last assembly last October. The theme was the power of storytelling in religious traditions or in religious teachings. So we have combined rabbi and imam and Christian leader stories together, and everybody tell the story from the text, holy text. And as you know, the Abrahamic religions have the same story, but in different perspective. So it was a good way to strike or provoke discussions and one-to-one deep understanding after these sessions. Because if you know the story and you believe in the story in a certain manner, then you hear the story from the other perspective. You need to learn more, and this really get people closer together and more understand each other more and respect each other more. Another use of storytelling technique was in our last training for preventing youth from radicalization for Europeans and MENA young youth workers. I used the story of the beer that wasn't. If you know this story, it's a very old story by Frank Toshin, something like this, his name. And this story is about a beer suddenly went to the winter in his winter in the cave, and he came out of the cave inside a factory, and everybody started to deal with him, treat him like a worker. But he told them, I am a peer, not a worker. Nobody asked him, and everybody and the management, they take him to zoo, and everybody insists that he's a worker, not a beer. This is how we can delete the identities in our community by classifying people in a certain manner. So this was part of identity education. We need to keep the diversity of identities, and melting the identities in one identity is not is not welcomed by the minorities, because the minority will lose their identity.
Right.
So this was a training about how to appreciate the identities of the minorities. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't understanding when the guy came out into the factory, they thought he was a worker and not a, what was the word?
Beer.
What is that?
Beer.
A bear. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, a bear. Wow.
Yes, they thought he's a human dressed like a bear.
I got you. Thank you. Amazing. I don't ever think the bears that come up on my deck to bird seed are human. But
there is short videos about this story in YouTube. The beer that wasn't.
Okay, I'm going to look it up. Thank you. That's great. Sodarat, did you have an opportunity to use storytelling recently?
Hello. Yeah, I actually did not use it myself, but I was involved in the techniques of using story, and also how story have an impact on my life. I think around nearly a month ago, I was in Netherlands, Rotterdam. So then on my internet, I'm in Rotterdam, and there's a woman called Cynthia. Cynthia, if you know her, she works a lot with story, and she used one of the game called Narratopia. I don't know if you have exposed to that. It's quite so we had a lot of opportunity sharing stories in there, and then a week later I joined the Hollywood conference with Abraham, and one of the CC leader in Malaysia, his name, and he told a story about his spiritual, how he becomes doing what he's doing. It is so powerful, and it really make the whole conference everybody is amazed of his story. So from that moment, it's really helped me see how powerful the storytelling is. And he really tells the story like vividly, with so much energy, with so much. I don't know how to explain that, but it's really impact, and I just don't forget it. And I had a dinner with him after that, and he told the story of how he become. I don't want to expose the person's priority. I mean, of privacy, so different things. So it's really powerful. That's all I can say. And in the past, I also use a lot of storytelling in my workshops, and so with URI group, we will share personal story, share how we become the job we're doing. So I can only say it's amazing.
That's
Story.
great. And,
Yeah.
and what was the kind of storytelling workshop you were talking about?
You mean the work? It's a workshop that looking at impact. It's working with story to make impact, to looking at where impact come from. So it's really about using story to highlight the impact. And one of the quotes he mentioned is like, one story is a good luck, 10 story is one marketing materials, and 100 story is impact. So like,
Wow.
yeah.
I'd love if you'd write that little quote in chat so we could capture it just like you said it.
Yeah.
Great, if you could write that in chat.
Yeah, I can do that in the chat.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Despina, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine.
Great.
This is so easy for me because it is during that day, so it's so easy. I don't have challenges with the network. So thank you for shifting me to this group.
Great.
Sorry?
Just saying welcome, dear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And have you been able to use storytelling in the?
Yeah. So I was saying that in Africa, storytelling is like part and parcel of everything we do. Or it is like a way of life, like the way we tell stories, either during the evening, like from our ancestors to the current, to even when somebody is making a presentation in a workshop, they will elaborate something around a story. So even in our staff meetings, I used like some kind of storytelling when I was telling them about, when I was trying to align them with what we were trained into, which was lacking in the way we were telling stories in our staff meetings. So I was telling them about the opening statement stuff, and how such opening statements would be also useful when we are making the newsletter. So I was trying, because we have like a quarterly newsletters that come out. So I was trying to discuss with the staff on how some of these stories from the different countries, how we could tell those stories using some of the things that we learned into our storytelling. So I used that during staff, but also there was a CC. I had like 3 CCs come to my office. We were having conversations around their work and how we needed them to be sharing, because they are not always sharing like the rest. And then we were going through on how they could probably share their story. And because I had talked to the CC liaison, who usually does the newsletter and sharing of stories, so I told them to sit with her to be guided through storytelling. But on the overall, you could see that what I liked about this session is how to weave the story and how to project it to the people. Because much as Africa, we tell so many stories in our presentations and our conversations and in this kind of stuff. How do we tell them is very, very important, and how impactful and how moving they can be to the people we are telling them. So I was using kind of an ancestral background of who we are as Africans, because we are like storytellers. And I saw in the chat Emmanuel talking about this lady. So it's an in thing for Africans to tell stories. But what I learned from Linda was, how do you tell the story and how impactful can it be? And that is what is being integrated in all the things that we are doing, in the conversations that we hold. Some formal, by the way, and some informal.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Despina. So have we, Has everyone had a chance to speak? Have I missed anyone? I don't think so. So I want to shift this last bit and see if anyone has had problems with doing storytelling or using it for their own work. Have there been any challenges to doing this? Father James, challenge?
Challenge is how to tell the story in such a way that it makes impact upon the listeners. If it has some suspense and it has some message, it has like a punch, then the story will be very, very effective. It will be received with great joy, and it will also offer the listeners to reflect upon their own lives and to relate to their own lives. I say it's very important the way story is narrated.
Yeah. And do you have a idea of how to best do that? How to best learn how to do that?
Yes, it's very important to know who are the characters in the story, what is their role. For example, yesterday there was a priest conference in Lahore, and it was on dialogue and reconciliation. And the story of prodigal son was taken as a model. And the role of the prodigal son who goes out and he gets his share from his father, and then he spends money the way lavishly wherever he wants. Then he has nothing. He realizes, oh, I should go back to my father, and I want to work with my father. He has so much food to give and so much care. And then we also see the role of the father, that how father welcomes his son. He forgets that he had taken his share and he was kind of disobedient. He shows a lot of mercy and compassion, and he welcomes his son with open heart. And we also see the role of the other brother of his son, other son who was very angry. Oh, I have been working with you for so many years. You did not give me treatment. You did not arranged any banquet. And this fellow, he went, he took his money, and you have organized such a big banquet to welcome him, and you have slaughtered the goats and so on. So there kind of, it's a very, very, very powerful story of our own inner self, that how at times we work and we may be jealous of others, and then and our other, we may reflect upon what we did, and that was wrong. It should have not happened again. So at the time, father's mercy, his compassion, his love, his care for his both sons, and the one who is angry for him also, and the one who went away for him also. So I said, such I could see that there were about 70 priests, and although we have read this story many times, but still it was a renewal of the story, and it became again live for us.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Katu, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Linda. For me, challenge is like, since we are part of peace building measures in our own way, so for me, it becomes a very, I won't say it's a very challenging task, but a difficult task, because always the listener is the outsider, and the storyteller is the one who has gone through those, whatever challenges or hostile situation in its particular area or region. So many times when we are like very honest and very concerned, and we really want to take their information or their story to a point that where we are able to bring the resolution or some kind of meaning or help. But then to bridge that gap between the listeners and the storyteller, because they think like we are outsiders, we will just come for a few days and then to their story, then we will just take their stories for the sake of data collection. But of course, our work consequently, it proves like we are just not listening, we have to listen, but to help them out. But in situations which are like hostile or highly sensitive, or in that moment, to ask them to tell the stories, or even to make them understand that we are very much part of your life and your situation. That is something like that technique needs to be inculcated in all, like you're working, especially like action oriented work which we are handling. Yeah.
Linda, I was getting a double echo and I couldn't quite hear. Could someone do a synopsis so I can put it on the slide?
I'll put up in the chat.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Kitube. I appreciate that. So now we do the challenges, how others receive the message. The solution is being sensitive to the reality of others. Thank you. Matt talked about a challenge in using storytelling if you don't have a captive audience. And you're using it in networking, for example, with lots of distractions, snacks, time is short, people are up mingling around, I can imagine. And he says you have to make it snappy. And I think that's really true. Like we talked about that in the workshop, that people really only have about 2 minutes of attention span. But what is the other thing that Matt could do in that kind of situation to get people to pay attention? Does anybody have any ideas?
I think your advice to the first line is a good one. So the